Hey everybody, good morning. Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. Um, Unknown caller. Um, all right. Good morning. Our state's consumer fraud and antitrust acts exist for a reason. They reflect a core principle, one that our state constitution has recognized since Arizona was founded, that markets must be allowed to compete freely and that collusion among competitors to fix prices is not just unethical, it is flatly illegal. In 2024, my office brought a lawsuit that puts these principles to work. We sued a company called RealPage Incorporated, one of the country's largest providers of apartment rental software, along with several major corporate landlords operating in Arizona. Our complaint alleges that these defendants participated in a conspiracy to fix rental prices across the Phoenix and Tucson metro areas, harming hundreds of thousands of Arizona renters in the process. It is a case about technology being used to do something very old-fashioned, price fixing. We allege that RealPage built algorithmic software that collected confidential pricing and occupancy data of competing landlords and then told those landlords what rents to charge. We allege that these competitors stopped competing. Instead, they outsourced their pricing decisions to a single company that openly promised to help them outpace the market and to achieve revenue lift, even during economic downturns. RealPage didn't just sell software, it employed what it called, quote, pricing advisors, who met regularly with landlords to make sure that they were following the algorithm's recommendations. They pressured those landlords to accept the software's prices. That is price fixing. It is illegal, and it hurt real people all across Arizona. In Phoenix and Tucson, rents have spiked dramatically over the past decade. At the height of these increases, many Arizona residents were spending between 50 and 100% of their income just to try to put a roof over their heads. Let me repeat that. They were spending 50 to 100% of their income on rent. In recent years, Maricopa County saw record high evictions. More than 83,000 evictions in a single year. That means that clearly the rent became just too damn high. So today I am proud to announce a settlement with one of the defendants in our case, Weidner Property Management LLC, which is a Washington-based company that owns and manages apartments here in Arizona. And you can see where they are here on the map. You can see the apartment complexes and their locations. Weidner, as a part of this settlement, admits no wrongdoing. Under our agreement, however, Weidner will pay $1 million directly and directed specifically to Arizona renters. I'm going to repeat that. Weidner is going to pay $1 million directed specifically to its Arizona renters. The funds will go Initially to Wildfire, the Arizona nonprofit that provides rental assistance through Arizona's community action agencies, and the funds will be earmarked to rental assistance for current and former Weidner tenants. This money will flow directly to Arizona families who need help to maintain stable housing. But this settlement is about more than just a dollar amount. It is about protecting future renters in the state of Arizona. Weidner has already stopped using RealPage's software and has agreed not to use any revenue management products that rely on competitors' non-public data or that incentivize acceptance of algorithm-driven rent recommendations for the next 5 years. They cannot use software that imposes artificial price floors. They cannot use software that financially incentivizes their managers to accept algorithm-driven rent increases. They cannot share or solicit competitors' sensitive rental information through any channel. No, not software, not industry meetings, not emails, not a shared spreadsheet, not a phone call. Weidner will also provide my office with annual compliance certifications and reports identifying every property using a revenue management product and confirming that that product meets the requirements of this agreement. And let me be very clear, we will be watching them. As part of this agreement, the state will dismiss its claims against Weidner. And I want to be clear about something else. This is one chapter of a much larger case. We remain in active litigation with RealPage and several other corporate landlord defendants. My office is vigorously pursuing claims against those companies, and we will not stop until we have achieved full accountability for what was done to Arizona renters. Every defendant in this case should understand that we are prepared to see this through to the very end. Arizona's Constitution has prohibited price fixing since the day we became a state. Antitrust and anti-monopoly language is written into the Arizona Constitution. Our founders understood that when powerful interests collude to control prices, ordinary people pay the price. The technology may be new, the algorithm may be sophisticated, the scheme may have operated in servers and software rather than smoke-filled backrooms, but the conduct is as old and as illegal as a handshake deal between competitors agreeing not to undercut each other. My office will use every tool available under the Arizona Uniform State Antitrust Act and the Arizona Consumer Fraud Act to enforce that promise, and we will never be deterred. Arizona renters deserve a housing market that actually competes, one where landlords are fighting for their renters' business, not coordinating with each other to extract as much money as possible from those renters. That is what a fair market looks like. That is what Arizona law requires, and that is what we are fighting for here at the Attorney General's office. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys being here, and now I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Agent Mayes, how will those impacted renters, how do we know who's impacted, and will they be able to claim some of the settlement money, or is it all going to, did you say
Right. So this money will go to the renters at Weidner. Wildfire will be the entity that will disperse the money. And so Wildfire will set up a process whereby the former and current renters of Weidner, these Weidner properties, if we could put that, can we put that, Kylie, back up there? So if you are a renter currently at one of these properties, or if you were there before, anytime between the years 2016 and today, we would like you to contact Wildfire, and then Wildfire will will most likely process a payment to you. And we believe that on average, those payments are likely to be equal to 2 months' rent for those who request money. And so that's kind of how it's going to work. I mean, it's a little bit of a work in progress probably for Wildfire in terms of, the processing of the funding. But the funding, I believe, is at least half of it. Correct me, Mitchell and Felicia, if I'm wrong. The funding is going to start flowing to Wildfire in the next few days. I think I read about February 28th was the first tranche of money goes into Wildfire. So hopefully this relief for these renters, at least, will start to come very, very soon. And I think that's a really important part of the settlement and why we did it, because it's a significant amount of money for just the first landlord that we are seeking to hold accountable in this lawsuit.
About how many other landlords are you engaging with?
Yeah, I'm seven more. Okay, so it was 8 total. I thought it was 9 to begin with. So it's 7 more. And it was 8 total. And then, of course, you have RealPage, which is the algorithmic company. And so I guess that would be 8 total entities we are still in litigation with.
What's the goal of the RealPage lawsuit? Are you trying to get them out of Arizona? Are you trying to shut that business down?
Well, I mean, the goal for all of these companies, for the landlords and for RealPage, is to stop them from engaging in this behavior, which is anti-competitive. So we want them to stop using essentially this or providing this price-fixing algorithm to landlords. So we want to stop that thing that led to so many renters being overcharged in Arizona, first of all. So that's thing number one. And then thing number two is we want to get real money back to renters. Some of you may have seen that the Department of Justice did a settlement with RealPage recently that I'm very critical of. They had their own case. It actually started under President Biden, then under Trump. I think they folded like a cheap suit. And we aren't doing that in the state of Arizona. They got a tiny amount of money for Graystar, and they got no money from RealPage, not a dollar from RealPage. All they got was injunctive relief. They got, some changes to RealPage's business operations, but we want money back for renters. And so, I was the first state AG to bring this case. And then after that, the Department of Justice brought a separate case. And then after that, Trump folded like a cheap suit. So not happening here in Arizona. We're full speed ahead on our litigation against these landlords and against RealPage.
Has your office discussed any further penalties any further consequences if they were to kind of like, in the future maybe like refashion this into some other way, they find a loophole or anything like that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, in this agreement, they have agreed to not do anything like this and to not use this kind of software for 5 years. And if they did it again, we would sue them again. I'd sue them again in a heartbeat for doing this. And if they violate this settlement, then we can come back at them again.
Do they have the same legal attorneys defending them, or they got separate? And
That's a good question. I think they have separate attorneys. I think most of them have separate legal counsel, and that's okay. We can, we're going to continue to litigate this case. We've had a couple of significant victories already inside the litigation and inside the courtroom. We successfully defeated these companies, the defendants' motions to dismiss. And the court and the judge in our case ruled that an antitrust violation can also be an unfair practice under the Arizona Consumer Fraud Act, and we defeated the motion to dismiss. So we're full steam ahead on these other cases.
My question was because it was too much work, and I don't know how your office is. So
Hey.
I'm feeling for it because I worked a little bit part-time on those jobs.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's a lot of work, but I've got the best lawyers in the state of Arizona working for me. Two of them are sitting right over here, Mitchell Alley and Felicia Rodolini and their teams. We have an amazing antitrust division here at the AG's office I'm very, very proud of, and our consumer fraud section. They work hard on so many different kinds of cases that you guys have covered over the years.
How many renters are affected in this settlement?
Oh boy, do you guys have that? I'm sorry, I didn't get that number. We can get that number for you after the fact.
I'd
Yeah.
also like to know how many renters are affected overall in the other cases that you're.
Yeah. Yeah. We will get that for you. I will say that while there's a significant number of apartment units here, and I will say I think the average rent charged at these apartment complexes is a little bit lower than it is at some of the other complexes. Meaning that probably the refund that they're going to get is going to be very meaningful. I mean, these are probably lower income apartment units in most cases, and so getting 2 months worth of rent is going to be very meaningful for somebody paying probably $1,200 a month. But that being said, I think some of the other apartment landlords are bigger and have more customers and more renters associated with them. So, for instance, that would be a Greystar, right? Or Trammell Crow or HSL. This is probably one of the smaller landlords that we addressed or are addressing.
And what's your message to those landlords that are still in litigation right now?
I mean, my message is you are not going to get the same treatment that you got, that RealPage got from DOJ. We're not giving up on this case. We're going to fight for renters. We're going to fight like hell for people who were harmed by these corporate landlords. And we're not going to give up until we get a fair deal for these renters who were hurt. And, my message is knock it off. I mean, you'd better not be using this algorithm and engaging in this kind of price fixing anymore in the state of Arizona. We are here to send a signal that you cannot cheat Arizona renters in the state of Arizona, at least not while I'm the Attorney General. And because, this went on for far too long. I mean, when you look at the fact that rent went up in Phoenix upwards of 75% since 2016, I think a big part of that problem was this price fixing. And that is terrible. And it's terrible at a time when people already can't afford their lives. And when, people are dealing with utility rate increases, rent obviously increases in the cost of groceries caused by these terrible tariffs that thank God we defeated on Friday. All of it is a perfect storm for consumers. And so this is an incredibly important case for our office. And it's going to have our full and complete attention until it's done.
Another question, can you respond to, I know there's been some criticism of your pursuing this case without having renters come to you and complain about that. Do you think that's valid criticism of this case?
No, because I mean, we did have renters come and complain to us. I mean, we've had, I believe, in several cases, and they certainly have come in since the case began, differing levels of renters. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, many of these renters, I think, kind of suspected something was amiss as they saw their rent go like this, but they didn't certainly know that there was a secret algorithm at work behind those rent increases, and that their landlords were secretly colluding with one another to jack up their rents. And so I think it's a little unfair to blame the renters when they had, of course, no reason or ability to discern or find out that their landlords were cheating them. And that's what my office is here for. And, you know, this happens. You know, we have the tools to discover things that you know, the average person doesn't necessarily have the ability to do. That's my job. I'm the top law enforcement and legal officer for the state of Arizona. It's my job to dig in and to discover these schemes. And that's what this is. It's not, you know, that burden shouldn't fall on somebody who's renting in an apartment complex who's just trying to make do every month.
Time for one more?
Yes.
I don't know. I was just gonna ask, like, is there any type of like through line to like maybe the neighborhoods that were targeted? Like, where does Weidner have a lot of apartments, and yeah, what type of?
Well, it does look like, I mean, did they have one down in Tucson? Yes, I think they had one apartment complex down in Tucson. You can see there, I don't know if there's a through line, but these are the locations on the map, and we can probably get you exact addresses. They do seem to be fairly dispersed, although I will say down here underneath this bubble, I don't know if you can see it, but that's 4 locations here, and that looks like basically central to South Phoenix, and then 5 locations here in central Phoenix, and then 2 locations over here near Tolleson and in the West Valley. So, you know, again, I think these are probably lower income or mid-income areas where the apartment complexes are located. Okay. Anything else?
Can we go off topic? That's one more.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's kind of part of the refunds. Congratulations, AG, on the winning with the tariffs. 'Cause
Well,
I know
thanks.
Nobody talks about it, but I already know the details of it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you if you want to elaborate on how you feel about what transpired with the court.
Yeah, so, you know, we're so happy and so thrilled to have won this case in front of the United States Supreme Court on behalf of every American who basically had to pay an additional $1,000 to $1,300 last year in the form of what was basically an illegal tax. Tariffs are taxes on the American people. And so the United States Supreme Court said that Donald Trump violated the law and, frankly, the Constitution when he imposed those tariffs under the law called IEEPA. And so I'm just thrilled. I hope this will relieve some of the pressure on consumers and will start to bring down prices. Sadly, as you know, however, Donald Trump then immediately announced that he was going to try to increase the worldwide tariffs to up to 15%. We'll see whether that's even legal. And it is, what's important, however, is even if he does it, it's time limited. He can't do it for more than 150 days. And you know, and we are also seeing companies already go to the Court of International Trade and ask for refunds. And they're due refunds. I mean, frankly, I think Arizona families are all due refunds of $1,300. But we'll see how that plays out. We don't know how that's all going to play out. I wish that Donald Trump would stop trying to deliberately harm the people of this country, because that's what he is doing with these taxes. I wish he would stop trying to kill small businesses in the state of Arizona, because that's what these tariffs were about to do. You know, the AGs, Democratic AGs across the country will continue to be vigilant about this, and we will continue to fight the tariffs whenever and wherever we can.
AG Mayes,
Yeah.
President Trump said last night in the State of the Union he wants tariffs to essentially replace income tax eventually. What's your response to that?
I think that's nuts. You know, tariffs again. It's a tax on. It's a tax not just on consumers, but also on small businesses, and it wreaks havoc with our economy. So this notion that he could do that would ever even work, I think is ludicrous. And again, if he did that, he would probably have to raise tariffs so high that it would absolutely obliterate our economy. You know, I mean, our economy is based on capitalism. It's based on free enterprise. It's based on small businesses. It's based on, you know, the hard work of the American people. And tariffs work against all of that.
Oh, sure.
One more.
One more.
Last night in the State of the Union, President Trump did call for Congress to pass the Save America Act. If that does become law, what action could you potentially take? Because of course those voting restrictions would be, you know, much tighter than what we have in Arizona with our current laws for voter ID and also for proof of citizenship.
Yeah. Well, I would say on the proof of citizenship piece, we are all already, I think, the only state that has a proof of citizenship requirement for registering to vote. And so, look, this SAVE Act is bad for Arizona and the rest of the country. It's unnecessary. It is an effort to suppress the vote in a state that already has incredibly well-run elections, in a state that has virtually no illegal voting. I mean, it is next to nothing. It's minuscule, barely registers. And so this is, you know, a terrible solution in search of a problem that doesn't exist. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't pass. I'm hoping that the Senate does not fall for this. And look, you know, we're going to continue to do everything that we can here out of this office to protect the rights of Arizonans to vote and to have their vote count. You know, more on that later, but that's where we are.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, you guys.
Thank you, General.
Appreciate you guys.